Dark Minions by Z-Man Games. This is a dice game set in a dark and evil fantasy world where you are this dark and evil mastermind and you send dark and evil minions against cities. Yes, the cities are not dark and evil. They are the only thing in this world that is not dark and evil, and this is why you hate them and you want to turn them to ashes. This is a dice game for 3 to 5 players. The box says that it lasts between 45 and 60 minutes. With 5 players, it took us around 90 minutes, but that wasn't really a problem, not enough to make the game overstay its welcome. This is the general idea. Let's see how the game plays. At the beginning of each game, you receive a pool of minions. Cubes represent 1 minion and octagons represent 5 minions. You also have these 2 markers that can be saved until the end of the game, and in that case they will give you 1 and 2 victory points, or you can spend them during the game to re-roll dice or to receive the effect of a skull marker. I will explain later what skull markers are. You also have a tableau matching the color of your minions. The tableau indicates the level that you are at. All players start at level 1, and during the game they will have opportunities to level up. The level that you are at also indicates the type of dice that you will be rolling. All players start at level 1, so at the beginning they all roll 3 black dice. The black die goes up to 6 and starts from 1, and 1 has a plus there. That means that that number can be used by itself or can be combined together with another result. This is important because usually you cannot add results together. That is your roll. You cannot just use it as a 7. Usually you have to use your dice to execute different actions unless you have a plus something result. So sometimes you will want to receive that so that you can have a single individual high result rather than several lower results. Red dice are pretty good because they start from 3 and they go all the way up to 8, so that means basically d6 plus 2, and at any time when you're rolling you can replace one of your red or black dice with the white die, which has a plus 1, plus 2, and a skull symbol. Again, I'll talk about the skull symbols later, but again, the plus 1 and plus 2 will help you put together high results. Each game you will have 3 or 4 cities in play, and the number depends on the number of players. When a city is destroyed, it is replaced with another one drawn from this stack here. Different sections of this stack are shuffled individually, and then they are stacked one on top of the other in a specific order so that there is randomness in this stack, but still you have the least valuable cities on top and the most valuable cities at the bottom of the deck. Each city is associated with 3 or 4 towers. It depends on the number printed at the bottom of each city. And there are 3 types of towers: the white tower, the gray tower, and the 6th tower with different numbers printed on them, 4, 5, or 6. Okay, you rolled your dice, and now it is time to allocate your resources to use your dice to perform actions. An action that you can perform is to use a die to take control of a tower. You need a die that shows the printed number or more. Then you need to spend the number of minions equal to the printed number. This would be 5 minions. And if you have those 2 things, the die and the minions, you can take that tower tile. And the minions that you just used are destroyed, go to the graveyard area. They can be respawned later, but they're out of the game for now. You need these towers because if you collect an entire set, white, gray, and black, then you can level up, and leveling up is pretty good because of course you get better dice, but also you gain victory points from leveling up, and this is what the towers are for, to level up. Then you have other dice and you can do something with those. Something else that you can do is to attack a city, that is to add minions to a city, but it has to be another city. You cannot attack the same city where you just took a tower from that turn. I want, for example, to send 4 minions to that city, then I use my 4 die, and my other 2 die has to be used somewhere else. I cannot use it to attack that city again the same turn. And the minions that I sent there, they just stay there for now. In following turns, I may choose to add more minions to that city. Other players may add their minions, and there will be a time where the number of minions around a city is equal to or higher than the number printed on top of the city tile. At that point, the city collapses. The player that has the majority of minions in a city receives the tile that will give him a certain amount of victory points, the amount printed on the tile itself. And also the player receives skull markers, the number of skull markers indicated at the bottom of the tile. Then the second player, in this case it will be the blue player, receives 2 victory points, and the player that triggered the destruction of the city receives a victory point. After the city has been destroyed, all of the minions that participated to the battle are moved to the graveyard area. Another action that you can execute is to respawn minions. That action allows you to move minions from the graveyard to your pool of active minions. You can use your dice to respawn minions. A die will allow you to respawn the corresponding amount of minions, or you can use skull markers that you previously acquired. A skull marker allows you to respawn 10 minions, 2 markers, 20 minions, and 3 markers played together allow you to take back all of your minions. The skull symbol on the white die allows you to respawn 10 minions, and you can also spend one of your initial victory point tiles to generate a skull result when you are respawning minions. And then you have the Overlords, which are represented by these cards. You have a deck of Overlords. At the beginning of the game, you shuffle the deck and you turn 4 Overlords face up. During a player's turn, the active player can choose to take one of the 4 Overlords, put it at the bottom of the deck, and to draw a new Overlord in case the player doesn't like what's available here. Then Overlords can be purchased spending die results, and the cost of the Overlords is printed there, so you can spend your results and you receive the Overlord. When you purchase an Overlord, you receive the number of minions that is printed there. You respawn them from the graveyard. Not all Overlords will give you minions, but some will. Then you will be able to execute the special action printed on the card of the Overlord. Some of these actions are resolved as the Overlord is purchased. In other cases, the Overlord stays in your area, and then you can play the card and resolve the effect later. There are even cards that have a continuous effect that you can benefit from each turn, but to be able to use that effect, you have to feed a certain number of minions to that Overlord. That is the turn cost. For example, the werewolf, if you want to be able to reroll a die each turn, you need to give 2 minions to the Overlord each turn. And to give you a sense of what the other Overlords can do, the Witch allows a player to turn in any 3 towers for a level up, so not a tower per type, a lot of flexibility here. This is one of my favorite ones. The player may move up to any 5 minions from any town to any other town. When you know how the game works, when you start realizing the subtleties, you will see that this is a very powerful card. It will allow you to sniper a city and to steal a city from another player and get a huge amount of points. So you really have to time actions well, but this is a powerful card. The Gargoyle. Any one town the player chooses requires 5 less minions to vanquish. Very different effects, and what I like in these effects is that they create a lot of interaction among the players. These are usually effects that will get in the way of what other players are trying to do. They mess up with other players' strategies, so they're fun. They raise the confrontational level of the game for sure, but they also add very interesting layers of strategy. So this is really how the game works. You destroy cities, you capture towers, you use the Overlord's abilities, you respawn your minions, and you collect victory points as you're doing all of these evil things. Towns are worth the printed amount of victory points. Leveling up also gives you victory points. The initial tiles give you victory points if you save them until the end of the game, and also each skull that you haven't used to respawn minions is worth a victory point. The first player to achieve the required amount of victory points is the winner, and that amount of points changes depending on the number of players that are playing the game. This is a dice game, so at the end you may still have a player that complains that there was too much luck involved, but I really found that this game has a nice set of options. It gives you a lot of things that you can do to work around the luck factor. And the game has more interaction that I expected. I thought it was going to be each player playing a solitaire game. Let's see who gets to 35, 50 points before that the players do. But actually here you have the Overlord cards that will interact with what other players are going to do. The number of minions in the cities and the concentration, the majority, that will change. That is a huge element of interaction. Maybe indirect, but you still have to take that into account, and that will change depending on what other players do. And then just different effects and other options that really you can use to target other players' actions, and that also helps in case you have a little bit of a runaway leader. Then if the other players gang up against that leader is going to have a hard time. I like the fact that the game has different paths to victory. At the beginning, everybody thought that leveling up was a no-brainer. It gives you better dice, of course, and from that you're going to do more profitable actions. And then I managed to win a game in which I had the worst dice ever. I just was the player with the lowest level. There were other players at the same level, but I still was at the bottom there, and I managed to win the game. And then another game I won in exactly the opposite way, by leveling up a lot and getting the points that come from leveling up. So different paths of victory to me, of course, is evidence of a game that really gives you enough options, gives you different strategies that you can choose from. The game doesn't last too long. A minus may be that it requires at least 3 players to play. A minus for some players that like to have the 2-player option, the play with your spouse option. But if you put together enough players to play the game, and then the game is fun, maybe you won't play it as often, but you will still get enough good gaming out of the game to make your investment worth it. So, in conclusion, this is a game that I really enjoyed. I found it to be full of subtleties, full of interesting layers that you discover as you play, a lot of interaction, and a game that emphasizes strategy over luck. Of course, to the extent in which this is possible in a dice game.